Hello, everyone, and welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining us in our 19th episode of How Well Are You, the talk show. Yes, 19th episode. So we are just rolling right along. Here at How Well Are You, the talk show, we are absolutely committed to dismantling the stigma associated with mental illness. As I always say, one episode at a time. Now, October is recognized as Depression Awareness Month each year. And the purpose is to increase understanding, to decrease stereotypes, and to help educate on how depression and other mental health issues impact people. Now, in this evening's episode, we're going to be diving into how shifting your mindset can be instrumental in overcoming depression as well as anxiety and trauma. I'm Cynthia Mobley Howell, your host, and I am the driving force behind How Well Are You. As the founder and the CEO, I'm dedicated to guiding you on a transformative journey towards achieving your optimal well-being in every dimension. That is spiritually, mentally, and physically. Our mission is to empower you, ensuring that you emerge as the best version of yourself. How Well Are You, the talk show, places a special focus on the topic of mental well being. That said, I am so thrilled to announce the release of my latest book, Crazy Didn't Get Me: Preparation for My Destiny. Now, this deeply personal work explores my upbringing in a household where my three siblings, my only siblings, were profoundly affected by a severe mental illness. And this book chronicles my journey of resilience and survival. Yes, with the help of the Lord, I did survive. The book is available in both paperback and e-book formats. And you can purchase your copy directly from my website at cynthiamobleyhowell.com. Don't miss the opportunity to be inspired by my powerful story of what it's like being raised in a household with three mentally ill siblings. So go ahead and get your copy today. I want to thank you all so much for joining us each week as we explore all aspects of mental health. We fearlessly tackle every topic. We leave no stone unturned. And if you're catching the replay, we love you too. And just feel free to leave a comment with the hashtag replay, because I know everybody can't always be here live, and that's fine. We got lives. So, but we appreciate your presence, even if it's at the replay, even if you're tuning in after the live session. I'm just absolutely loving this journey that we're on together, encouraging others to understand and have compassion for those who are navigating the complexities of mental well-being. So go ahead, hit the share button, because we want everyone to know we're here right now. Your love and support means so much to us, and we want to hear from you. So don't hesitate to express your thoughts in the comments section. Today, we have the privilege of welcoming a truly remarkable guest, and she's going to share her expertise and offer valuable insights on our topic. So again, go ahead, tag someone, and click that share button. Let's spread the knowledge and make a positive impact on more lives. So without further ado, it's with great pleasure that I will rather introduce our remarkable guest. She probably doesn't know this, but when I started my show back in March, I believe it was March, I was kind of like just searching the net. I just Googled like mental health speakers or something like that. And this podcast popped up that she was actually a guest on. And when I heard her speaking, her voice, and y'all will see what I'm talking about in just a minute, I'm like, oh my God, who is this? Her voice was so calming and so soothing. And she just drew me in. And as I listened to her, I'm like, oh, I got to have her on the show. And I was just starting, and I actually reached out to her, and she said yes. So after working in the healthcare industry for many years, our guest this evening developed a desire to become more active in helping people overcome traumatic challenges in their lives. This desire soon transformed into a passion, which led her to become a licensed clinical social worker and addiction counselor. She has a mental health private practice called Alpines, and you can correct me if I didn't pronounce that correctly, Shawnee. Uh, it's called Alpine's Empowerment Agency, which is named after her late grandmother, Alpine. I love that. She's also the founder and president of Kindred Youth Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting teens who battle with building healthy relationships due to exposure to substance abuse. Now, our guest is a self published author of Shifting Your Mindset, a guide to overcome depression, anxiety, and trauma, which we're going to be discussing this evening, in which she uses her professional and personal wisdom to help others gain more insight into common childhood challenges and effective tools for overcoming them. She also has an online university, podcast, and YouTube channel that she uses to support others on their self healing journey. Shawnee is a mother and has many roles that she enjoys fulfilling. And that is just the long and short of it, because I know that she does much more. So, can you all help me extend a very warm welcome to Shawnee Palmer? And if you would just go ahead and show us some love, make sure you hit that love button, give us some hearts, some hand claps, some whatever in that chat. We want to hear from you. Welcome, Shawnee. How are you this evening?
Thank you for having me. I'm feeling amazing. I'm excited to be here. I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about, how deep we're going to get, but I'm just excited for whatever it is that the people need out there and to connect with your audience. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for saying yes. And we're gonna get as deep as we need to get. We're gonna get as deep as we need to get, as we want to get, because it's our thing and we're gonna do what we want to do. So you just feel free, like I said, to just flow however you choose to flow, however the Lord leads you. You feel free. I reached out to you because when you were on the podcast that I was listening to that evening, it was made mention of your book again. And we're going to, as a matter of fact, Shawnee's information is right there on the screen where you can actually connect with her if you, and we're going to be talking about it more toward the end of the broadcast, but you can actually get this book. This is a very good book. I love the book because at the end of each chapter, there's an exercise, or at the end of most chapters, there's an exercise that you can do. There's also reflection, and then there's a place to journal. And I love that. I actually love that. Um, the book is definitely an interactive work, and it's an easy read. So you can certainly get your hands on it. As I said, her information is scrolling. So I want to ask you, for starters, what
Mhm.
was your inspiration for writing the book, Shawnee?
So originally, I started writing this book back in, I believe, 2015. And my purpose of writing the book was to really reach out to the younger versions of myself. So those teen girls who have been, lost, confused, didn't have much guidance, role models, positive role models in their lives. That was my intention. As I started writing the book and getting feedback from others about it, God started to really plant on my heart that I need to make this personal because I'm always the type of person, I'm coming from a teaching style. And God was like, you can teach through your testimony. I need you to be able to stretch yourself. So really, this book became my outlet. It helped me elevate myself when it came to my healing journey. I didn't understand just how deep in pain I was until I really started writing this book from the perspective of I'm going to share my story so that I can set myself free. But in doing so, I wanted to always make it relatable to the other people that would read it. So my purpose was for healing for myself, but also in hopes that somebody else would read my book and they would receive healing as well, which is why I put the reflections and the notes and things like that in the back, because I'm the type of person, like, I like to cut straight to the point. I don't want to waste individuals' times. And I'm an avid reader. I love reading books. Ever since I was a little girl, I was always in the library reading books, online purchasing books. So I was like, okay, I want to get straight to the point. Self help book. I don't want any fluff. I just want the people to get what they need because God has given me everything that I need. And I felt like if I packaged it up in a book, at least one layer of it, it would be beneficial to the people out there that would read it.
Wow, that is very good. And it is definitely, in my opinion, serving the purpose because, as you said, when I started reading it, I was, you know, shocked because I thought I was just going to be reading a book. I didn't realize that it was going to be interactive. And it was very helpful to me. And I like what you said because as a result of your journey and what you went through, as a little girl, you wanted to be able to reach others and to help others heal from whatever traumas they may have experienced. And in order to do that, it is very important that we reflect, that we think about what it is that has happened. Well, let me back up. That we think about what has happened with us, and then thus the exercise, the portion that you allow us to do exercises, and then for us to reflect on what we actually put down, and then we can journal after that. And I'm the type of person that I tend to, when it comes to exercises, I can be kind of lazy and be like, oh, I don't feel like thinking about it. And after reading the first two chapters, I realized that that laziness was upon me because I had flown right past the exercises and did not do them. And I said, you know what? That's y'all's problem right now, people. Y'all don't do as y'all are instructed, and the book, it's an instruction, and one instruction is an exercise, and you need to. So I had to dial back, and I said, Cynthia, come on, do what you need to do. I dialed back and I did the exercise and did the reflection and did my journaling, and it was so helpful. So your book is entitled Shifting Your Mindset, Overcoming Depression, Anxiety, and Trauma. So I can't help but believe that you have, well, the book title, let me get this right. That's the title that I titled the show. Forgive me. The book title is Shifting Your Mindset, a guide to overcome depression, anxiety, and trauma. And you mentioned earlier that you were reaching back to the little girl in you, and you wanted to come forward and to help some people as you have obviously overcome some depression, some anxiety, and some trauma. Can you talk a little bit about that? Share with our listening audience a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming into the field of counseling and going to school and things of that nature, I started to discover certain aspects of myself that had terrible mental health challenges. And I was discovering this as an adult, getting into my books and studying and understanding people. And there was a level of acceptance that I had some challenges, but I hadn't fully accepted it. That I had experience the same things that many people are diagnosed with. Now, I've never received a diagnosis because all of those things that were happening to me when I was younger were kept a secret. So, and I thank God for covering me as a child because from a very young age. And I'm going to say I battled with anxiety from the earliest age that I can recall is probably 6 or 7 years old. And depression specifically, I'm going to say 11 years old. Battle with depression because when I go back at those memories, I know exactly what it is because I know what it looks like clinically and I know how to put it on paper. And during my healing journey, I was able to go back and experience those things and I could feel them in the moment as reflecting on them. And that's when I knew that I had experienced a lot of trauma because it was still wreaking havoc over my life as an adult. So trauma is just one of those things like we can all experience some level of trauma, but the severity and the effect that it has upon us post trauma is really what labels it as trauma, like how it shapes us. And I started to look at the experiences that I had normalized all my life, just normalizing it. And then I realized, no, this was very abnormal. This really shook you up. This really changed your life. This really detoured you off the path that God really had designed for you, but God still made a way to get you back on the path that He has for you. So I called it a guide to overcome it because it's not the clinical depression, it's not the clinical anxiety, it's not the clinical trauma that I'm speaking of. Because when you look at depression, everybody goes through some type of sadness at some capacity. So I'm speaking in terms of like just being in a state of depression, and it being hard for you to push forward. Anxiety. We get nervous if you're not into speaking and being around large crowds. You can have some anxiety, but there's anxiety and depression that cripples you. There's trauma that cripples you. And I believe that I had many encounters in my life where all of those things crippled. And, just, and I don't know if you want to go into the actual experiences from the early age, but, I can take it back there because in my book, Shift Your Mindset, I did not talk about those really deep stories because I was not ready for it. I talked around them. Right? I talked around them, but in my second book that I just released, Free from Captivity, I spoke in great detail about those things because by that point, healing had came upon me in another level that I had never imagined could. So in my new book, this is when I really talk about the depression, anxiety, and trauma. I tapped on it a little bit in this book, and I'm sure we're going to get into it, but I'll go ahead and talk about the anxiety that came about. So I lived in a household where there was a lot of violence. And when I mean violence, there was a lot of arguing, fighting. The police were at the home a whole lot growing up in my home. So the anxiety came about from me always being on edge, trying to figure out how to keep myself in a protective mode because of the loudness in the home. And I put this in my new book. I spoke about the experience that I had when I was about, I want to say 6 or 7 years old, where I very vividly recall um, my mother stabbing her boyfriend. And that was an experience that I could not shake it for a long, long time. And every time I would go back to that memory, I would just cry. So as a teenager and in my early adulthood phase, I learned to try to block all of that out. I tried to dissociate from it so much because anytime that I would go back there, it would bring so much pain to my mind. And I would always tell people, whenever, people would be like, oh, if you had a chance to do your childhood over, would you? And I would hear everybody say, yes, 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 I would go back to my childhood. And I would always tell people, no. And I would not give any backstory to it. I would just be like, no, I would never do it. Um, just not for me. There's no aspect about my childhood that was pleasant for me. And I still can hold that to today as well to say I don't desire to go back and relive my childhood. But I look back at my childhood and I see where God's hand was there. So I always look back and say, thank you, Lord. I'm thankful that you were there in that present moment because those memories no longer cripple me. When I look at them or I'm talking about them in some capacity, I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude. So it's different from me trying to, you know, d- suppress all of those things, um, versus just dealing with them head forward. So just having that transparency, that was just one aspect of when that anxiety started creeping on in. And then, of course, trauma came about. Like with all those things that I was experiencing, the memories would not leave my mind, could not shake them. And then going into the mental health field, now I'm working with, not dealing with, I'm working with all of these people from every single background that you can think of. I'm working with every single person, any type of religion, age range, men, women, just people from all over the country that have, that live here. And I was just like, wow, all of these people, all of these walks of life, and I can see a piece of myself in everybody. And the beautiful thing is that I was able to help other people explore things more about whatever the challenges that they were facing, and then there would be healing, there would be revelation that I would receive. And that's when I started realizing just how challenging the depression hit me at a young age, when I had my a suicide attempt when I was 12 years old. So that's why I say 11 years old was when I started with that depression. And it was just so much trauma, so much weight upon me. And in my book, I go into detail more about that. But I refused to work with people who had suicidal ideations and severe depression for a while. I kept praying. I was like, no, I don't need to work with these individuals. But being in the mental health field, every single couple of years, you have to have a certain amount of continuing education credits, and suicide prevention and awareness courses, like a 3-hour course, is required of me. It's required of me. So I would have to show up to those. And then I started getting more and more comfortable with the idea of it, because now I have these clients who have the same challenges. But if they called me up to do a consultation and they mentioned they were suicidal, I would say, I'm sorry, but I wouldn't be able to support you, because it was just too crippling. And they tell us in the field that if there's something that could be triggering to you and you feel like it's out of your reach to be able to work with them, you absolutely can turn them away, refer them to somebody else, or if you start working with them, you can consult out. But here's the thing: when people would come to me and they've already started building a rapport, I could not allow myself to come to the point of referring someone out if I know that I can help them overcome it. It's just that I was choosing to say no, because I thought that I would be broken working with them, because I would have to revisit my own pain. So this was in the earlier stages of my career, when I had to I had to deal with some stuff, and in dealing with some stuff, I had to understand, like, how do I get over this? What tasks what things do I need to do? And I believe, and now I know, back then it was a Holy Spirit leading me and telling me exactly what to do, what to say to myself, how to work through these things. That's when I started journaling. I started video diaries and things of that nature. And all of the things that I put in this book, as far as those reflections, those questions, those are things that I had to ask myself. I went through a series of different things, and I'm sure some of the stuff I couldn't remember because it was such deep work, but all of these things I had to implement to work through that pain, to address it, so that way over time it could decrease, as far as like the emotional burden and pain that I felt from it all. So, the work is hard, and I get it. For anybody out there that's going through it, it's not easy. It's not easy, but you have to be determined to stand up and fight. And that's what I've always been determined to do. And that's just been my personality. Even though I've always been really quiet, I've always been determined to say, you know what, this may be my childhood, but this is not going to be my future. I would always tell myself that, no matter what, I'd be like, okay, well, when I become an adult, I'm not going to be tolerating none of this stuff, because I was very observant. And I would say, oh, okay, well, if this is the type of relationship that causes kids to be in a state of fear, can't sleep at night, I don't want a relationship like this. So I had standards that I came out of into my adulthood life with, that helped me to make sure that I was redefining what life would look like as an adult, to be able to heal and move past those things that I experienced as a child and as an adolescent.
Wow. You said so much. You were saying something early on, and you made me think about in my show last week, we were talking about we were dealing with mindset, but from a different aspect. Um, but I was talking about how, because I experienced so much trauma growing up in a household where all of my siblings were mentally ill, and you didn't know who was going to pop off on what day, what minute, what hour. And I was never one that was full of laughter. I was sharing that I could be watching a comedy show on TV or whatever with somebody else, and they would just be rolling all over the floor, just rolling, and I would just be sitting there looking, and then they would look at me and say, "What?" Uh, I said, "Ain't nothing funny," because growing up in my household wasn't nothing funny, wasn't funny, So it was very hard for me to laugh and I was trying to make myself laugh. I think they were funny, but because of what I was going through or what I had been through, there was nothing funny. So you talked about having anxiety at the age 6, 7, 7-ish, and then depression uh, around 11 years old, and then your first suicide or your suicide attempt or the suicide attempt at 12 years old. What actually, do you mind sharing what actually was going on with you that actually drove you to decide, you know what, I've had enough. I just really don't want to be here.
Hmm. Yeah. All the responsibilities and the lack of attention, the lack of like, it was so much happening at that time. At that time, I was the oldest of, it was just three of us. No, four of us. Because I had just had one of my younger siblings. So there would have been a lot happening. So at the age of 5, my grandmother passed away, the Alpine. And um, that was one of those things where I know now affected me as my brain started to understand what happened because I was with her a significant amount of time before she passed away. So having that sudden change take place, I think it did something on the inside of me where it made me fearful of people leaving my life at a young age because I was really connected to my grandmother. And um, a lot of the things that I learned, a lot of memories that I recall from when I was 2 and 3 years old were all from her home. And all I remember is peace. So, coming from a place of like feeling peaceful and then jumping into 6, 7 years old. And I'm just like, I don't have any peace. So I don't even know what peace is. All I know is what disturbance is, from a very young age. The first time I was intoxicated was that same age as well. So that's another story, right? That's another story where just growing up in a lot of Black homes, you grow up and you're not monitored. So there was a lot of freedom, a lot of kids being around other kids and kids watching kids. So a lot of that was taking place. So then you're curious as kids. You're gonna dibble and dabble with whatever is around you and what you see other adults doing. So um, it was just the weight of the world upon me that made me say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. My uncle had passed away a couple of months prior, and when he passed away, um, my mother took in his three of his children. I think it was three. Yep, at that time, three of his children. So it's already four children in the household, and I'm already the oldest. We're very responsible. Um, and she took them in, and I think it only lasted a couple of months, but was very close to that uncle who passed away, and how he passed away, the very vivid details, because I had already experienced so much anxiety. I could not shake the details. I understand now that I have a very strong spiritual gift, but this is me as a young baby getting all of this information, all of these downloads, and not knowing exactly what's happening, thinking I'm going crazy. But I was searching for peace. And I used to always say this in my earlier adulthood years. I just got to find a peace of mind. Like, I just need peace. I'm striving for peace. It was always that thing. And it's like, now I could say I have peace. And it's because I desired it. I needed it. I craved it so bad because I didn't know exactly what peace was. I just knew that it was possible. So, as far as, getting to that point, it literally was a layer of things. Just tired, just tired. And school was my only outlet, but also any outlets and like recreational things that I had, I didn't have the support there. So I would just lose a desire for anything that I loved because I didn't have the support, and I desired that support from my parents. It's also around the time where my father went MIA, and he used to be active in my life in some capacity where I thought it was very normal, weekends and things of that nature, to don't know where he's at, missing, and it was a choice that he had made. And so I just felt the abandonment. And in the book, Shifting Your Mindset, that's where I talk about my abandonment that I experienced with my father, as far as when it got to that huge point of it being a challenge. Now, it had always been different, throughout my lifetime when I look back at the abnormalcy of it, but it was normal, it was comforting, it was a routine to it at least. But at some point, there was just like a lot of disappointment from my parents, a lot of things.
Uh-oh. Like she froze on us. Uh-oh. Okay, let's see if we can get her back, because this is good. You know, it's amazing with technology how stuff happens. And I am determined that I'm just not gonna be tripping. I'm just not gonna be tripping because everything happens for a reason. She dropped completely off, and I'm sure she'll realize it in a minute, and she'll come back in. But I see your question. First of all, let me acknowledge all of you. Elizabeth, I saw you. Vanessa, I saw you. Patricia, I saw you. Deborah, my ride or die, I see you. Thank you all so much for popping in and for taking time out of your busy schedules. And there she is. She is back. Can you hear me, Shawnee?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Um,
Okay. So just keep right on going.
yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, that was just taking place there. And I see a question from Deborah.
Yes.
Get to, because I think that's a very important question. She says, "Do you know about your mother's emotional state when she was pregnant with you?" Um, so I do. And then I also understand her history of what was connected to our family, because what I was experiencing was also connected to generational issues that have been on the family bloodline. So when I look at my mother and my father and the challenges that they faced, I understand why I faced the challenges the way that I did. So yeah, yeah. But she was very excited to be pregnant with me because I was her and my father's first child, but they were young, so it was one of those things where you really don't know what you're getting yourself into being young. And, my mother was still in high school, but they were in love. And I think that some things that transpired during her pregnancy definitely affected her. But I like to look at things as far as the challenges that I faced mentally and how challenging like the anxiety and things like that were because of generational things. Because just the same way, when we're just looking at it from a medical field, if a person has diabetes, stroke, and all of the cancer in the family bloodline, it passes down. But when I connect with spiritual, I look at that as being generational curses that have been upon the family that were upon me when I came into the earth. And then those experiences that I had that were traumatic ignited those challenges that I faced at a young age. Yeah.
I'm still, and thank you so much for addressing Deborah's question. And I'm still totally in awe as I sit here and think about a 6 or 7 year old dealing with anxiety, an 11-year-old dealing with depression. And I love how you talked about it, how you helped us to understand the difference in just having an episode, but versus you actually suffering with, you know, depression or anxiety. Because people do, we all have, you know, we all have days when we wake up and we have the blues, you
Mhm.
know. We all have those moments where we may get anxious for something, but how we can recognize a difference, I believe, as you said, if this becomes a norm, if you will, then you know that it's something that needs to be looked into. You mentioned earlier, and I want to go back to it because one of the earlier traumas that you experienced, maybe one of the first ones, was you said you saw your mother stab her boyfriend, I believe is what you said. And you were how old when that happened?
About 6 or 7. Hmm.
So as a 6 or 7 year old witnessing that trauma, how did that, as you became older, I'm sure that was and I think you mentioned about, you know, getting certain things happening and getting certain images in your mind, they get ingrained in your mind and you just can't stop seeing it. How were you, how was that playing out in your life after you saw that? How was it playing out?
Yeah, yeah. Well, one, I knew that it was wrong, that it's not something that I should be experiencing, but it wasn't anything that I could do about it. So, growing up, I would tell myself that if it ever got to that point where I was that upset, right? Because in order to pull a knife out and stab someone, they would have had to have triggered you and angered you in some way. I was always very bent on you manage your emotions, no matter what, manage your emotions, because I come from a background, a family on both my mother and father's side who are fighters. So I saw a lot of fighting growing up. Now, I never saw my dad fight because he's just very reserved, but I knew he was a fighter. So it's just one of those things where I knew that I've seen my uncles fight their women, and I used to just be like, but it was more so the opposite. My mom fighting her boyfriend, so it wasn't him beating her, but there's a connection.
Ah,
When we look back at my grandparents and things of that nature, there was domestic violence there. So my mom, in a state of protection, making sure that she don't experience the same things that her mom experienced and whoever else she experienced in life, took it upon herself to be, I'm going to defend myself before you hurt me, or if you hurt me, we'll be hurting each other. When I look back at that. But one thing I took it upon myself to do is to say I'm not ever dating anybody that would put their hands on me, but also I'm going to threaten them. So anybody that I would date, I would let them know pretty early on. You ever put your hands on me, I'll hurt you. This was and I dated guys that were in the streets. So I made sure that I made that a point that, hey, I know I'm sweet, I have a soft voice, I'm really nice, but I will hurt you. And
get it twisted.
I would say it with a straight face, and they would believe me. And I never encountered any type of domestic violence,
Okay.
because he's head straight on. Don't ever in your life think that you can hit me. And then if and then but the one thing about my anger is that I didn't have a healthy outlet of doing things. So the moments that I can recall in my life where I blacked out, it was it was when I look back at it, only a couple of times, and they were very much so spread out. But I know how I am, and I could hurt, even though I'm a fighter. Not even in school, I was very reserved, straight A student. I was really into my school and my books, and I loved school. That was the only outlet that I had. That's a gift that I had that nobody could take from me, and nobody could shake me from it. And that's the one thing I did not allow trauma or depression to do.
I love it.
So that's one thing I was able to do. I didn't have any behaviors in school. I kept to myself. I would just have like one best friend. I didn't do a lot of crowds because when I did crowds, it was drama. So I stayed away from drama in school, and I just tried to control the narrative of the relationships that I had with people the best way that I could. And I'm also the oldest child. So my mentality was also I had to be a good role model for my siblings. Like I already had that role and that responsibility that was planted upon me. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna be the best at it. And I enjoy being a big sister till this day. Like that's just who I am. And I think it just helped me to better understand what I would tolerate and what I wouldn't tolerate in life. But it also um, kept me in a state of just not really understanding who I needed to be without the trauma because I was always in that survival state. Because when you see all of that violence growing up, you're going to be on edge, lack of trust. You're going to be thinking somebody out to get you and do you bad because this is what I was seeing. Like when you grow up in domestic violence, you don't only just grow up with that, you grow up with a lot of chaos and disorder. And that all that underlying stuff is what leads to all of that violence physically because it starts mentally, it starts verbally, and things of that nature. So I saw a lot of stuff and I was just like, I don't know how to trust. I can't trust my mother or father. So how can I trust you? So it developed into trust issues for people in the work environment, for friends, just everybody. But also, I'm an easy forgiver. So it's like I may not trust you, but then I'm forgiving you, and then I'm just used to seeing those unhealthy relationships. That's like you just stick with the person. They're not. It's not that bad. At least they're not. You're not fighting with the person, but it leads you to accept some things because you feel like, oh, it's not as bad as what you saw growing up. So that's what I believe it did to me seeing that.
Trauma. This is definitely a lot. We're going to, wow, this is so good. If you haven't already and you're watching, please share this. This is some good stuff. And I always can't wait to go back and listen because when I'm on, I'm trying to make sure I'm getting, checking the chat and all of that. And when I go back to listen, I just really like get the full thing because it's just like you are sharing. I'm hearing everything you're saying, but I cannot wait to go back so that I can absorb it all because you're answering so many questions. We often look at people and their behaviors and, of course, the first thing we want to do is lash out at people when they come for us. But sometimes if we could just take a step back, and that's why I created this platform, because we need to talk about things. This will help us, I believe, to have more compassion for people. We think sometimes we just think people just being mean, and we think people just, and some people are. Now, don't get me wrong. Let's not get it twisted. Some people are just mean, but some people have some serious issues that they've dealt with early on. Does it excuse them? Yes and no. I'm just going to be honest. Yes and no. To a certain degree, yes. Because if they have not dealt with these traumas, then we are going to see these things being reenacted in their lives. And like what you were saying about how you set the boundaries with the guys that you were dating. I'm telling you right now, and I'm telling you with a straight face, don't come for me, because if you do, you might lose a finger or two, or you might lose your nose or something, So I'm just telling you right now, I am not the one. When we come back from the break, your chapter 6 talks about managing your fear and anxiety. And you said, anxious thoughts come and go. Don't let them get the best of you. And I was having a conversation with somebody today about something that was going on with me, that someone had committed an offense against me. And I attempted to do, as the word says, to go to this person to rectify it. But they refuse to talk to me. Like, they won't answer their phone, but they'll send me a text and say, well, I was doing this, I was doing that, I was doing that. But they won't answer their phone because they don't want to talk to me. I'm like, okay, well then how am I supposed to rectify this if you won't even talk to me? Because I'm trying to do it the Bible's way. And so the individual that I was talking to said, just let it go. Well, I snapped out. And if they're on here, they said they were coming on, so they're probably listening. I snapped out. I was like, people always talk about just let something go. It's easy for you to say let it go when it's not you. But if the shoe is on the other foot, you know, you just don't let stuff go that easily. And I said that. And of course, during the conversation, I let it go because God dealt with me during our conversation, and I literally was able to let it go. I used that example, and I said all that to say, you said anxious thoughts come and go. Don't let them get the best of you. And the reason why that conversation I had earlier came to my mind, I'm thinking, don't let them get the best of you. How you don't let it get the best of you? That's easier said than done. One of those types of situations. When we come back, I want you to talk about those anxious thoughts that come and go, but how we will not let them get the best of us. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Miss Shani Palmer. She's talking to us from her book, Shifting Your Mindset, A Guide to Overcome Depression, Anxiety, and Trauma. Her information is at the bottom of the screen. This is a great read. It's an easy read. And please go to her website and grab the book. She also has just recently published another book, and she mentioned it earlier, but later in the broadcast, as she wraps up, I'm certainly going to give her the opportunity to tell us more about that book as well. So hang on, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back after this short break with Ms. Shani Palmer. Hey everybody. So we are back with Shani Palmer again. I just love her demeanor and how she is so articulate. A woman that just knows what she's talking about, knows what she wants, knows where she's going, and just doing the doggone thing. And I'm so elated that she would come today because I know for a fact that she has a very, very, very busy schedule, and for her to take time out to come and spend this hour with her means so much to me. So we're back again talking about Shani's book, Shifting Your Mindset, A Guide to Overcome Depression, Anxiety, and Trauma. And before the break, I had a question with regard to chapter 6, where she talks about managing your fear and anxiety. Here again is her book. I love this book because it gives opportunity for exercises, for reflection, and for journaling. It's a great book. Her information is at the bottom of the screen. Make sure you pick up this book. You will be blessed. So she said, The title of the chapter is Managing Your Fear and Anxiety. And she says, anxious thoughts come and go. Don't let them get the best of you. And I said, easier said than done. So, Shawnee, tell us about those anxious thoughts that come and go and how we cannot let them get the best of us. What do we do to not let those thoughts get the best of us?
Yes, you have to understand that although you don't see it, you can feel it. You have to realize that you are a living, breathing individual. So, how can you allow something that you can't see to become bigger than you? And I think that it's very important that you start to minimize your fears and anxiety so that that way they don't trample over you. We as a people, we get so accustomed to listening to those inner thoughts that we don't realize we have the ability to uproot them, pluck them, and there are seeds that are being sowed by the enemy, and you have to understand that it could be the enemy of your trauma, the enemy of your insecurities, like whatever the enemy is, including Satan himself, and anxiety can be very crippling because with anxiety, all it is connected to one fear. So if you have a fear of failure, if you go and try to attempt to do something and you fail, guess what? That fear will tell you, see, I was right. But the reality is that on that second or third try, you probably will succeed, but because you allow the fear to tell you, oh, we've already we've already done the result of whatever it is that we were concerned that would happen. Like that's what happened. Not realizing that you were actually strengthening yourself when you went forward, you just were missing information. And that's what a lot of anxiety is, it's missing information. You say I'm not good enough, the reality could be, oh, I need to enhance my skill, like I don't there's something missing on the inside of me, instead of just writing yourself out as a whole. And that's what anxiety tends to do. And then also anxiety is just a layer, and then before you know it, you're all over the place making all of these assumptions, you're creating all of these scenarios, and before you know it, you don't even know who you are in that moment because anxiety has gotten the best of you. And now you have allowed the worst version of yourself to show up with that anxiety. That's why I say you can't let anxiety get the best of you, because the best of you is your authentic self. It's your whole self. It's your most powerful self. And you have to stand in that power and not allow anxiety to take over you, right? Because anxiety comes and goes. But who you are in your natural state, that's there forever. No matter what, is there forever. Every time you pluck up something that shouldn't be there, here's your natural and authentic self. So we have to do a good job at navigating those thoughts and those feelings that we have. We have to have an outlet that we're going to engage in, reading the Bible, praying, fasting. Fasting is very powerful, just spiritually, to help clear out all of that clutter. We're humans. We're constantly under a state of distress. All of these things, these hats and these roles that we play, stress is going to pile up. And if you don't allow yourself to navigate through those stressors and be intentional about taking care of yourself, that anxiety is going to hit you and it's going to cripple you. And then that way it's going to be hard for you to actually get out of it. And the time that it took for you to get in there, it may take you that long to get out of it. So that's why I'm just very adamant about recognizing those thoughts when they creep on in. Everybody has some insecurities or some things that create some type of fear on the inside of them, but you have to have a game plan. You have to have a strategy for how you're going to address them. So anytime you're feeling like, oh, I'm a failure, right? It's probably because you're tired. You need to go to sleep. You need to get some rest. You need to slow down. You need to take a step back to say, am I doing something that's meaningful in my life right now? And am I holding myself back from doing something that I really desire to do? Because it's connected to many different things as far as like with triggers and what that looks like.
And I love that how you gave that practical application as far as when we're tripping, for lack of a better word, sometimes we're just tired. We need to go to bed. And you know what? I know you're telling the truth, because I have caught myself. If I happen to be in some particular type of funk, like everything somebody says is like set me on edge, everything, like I'm just edgy. And I'm like, girl, go lay down, go take a nap. Cause you just need to take a nap because you're tired. And that's why you're responding. That's why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. But I love something that you said, and I may be paraphrasing this. I tried to jot it down, but I think I may be paraphrasing it. But you said, I'm bigger than my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And I am. And I only ask that question because I don't like to use this term because, you know, when people say I'm playing the devil's advocate, I don't want to play nothing that the devil plays. So whatever other way you can say that, I asked that question because that is what I wanted to pull out. That's what I wasn't asking the question because I was challenging you. I was asking the question because I wanted you to tell our listening audience exactly that they don't have to be held captive to fleeting thoughts. Because as you say, thoughts are fleeting. And the Bible says that we cast down imaginations, every high thought that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Bring those thoughts into captivity, into the obedience of Christ. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are honest, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. So our thought, it is so important that we make sure that our thought life is under control. And as we start to near the end of this hour, I want you to speak on one other thing, and then once you do that, I just want you to take it away and just leave us with some parting wisdom, some parting thoughts, as well as let our listening audience know how they can connect with you. Y'all, you know, you can't do but so much in an hour. There's so much more to Shawnee Palmer than you've heard this hour. Her information is on the screen. Make sure you follow her. She has also a new book out. I definitely want her to talk about that. But before you do your wrap up and let the audience know how we can connect with you, chapter 12 talks about unlearning old belief systems and patterns. And you say you do not have to carry your childhood beliefs into your adult life. Allow yourself to be your own person. And we all know that many have been held captive in their adult life because of what has happened in their childhood. And if you learned it, obviously you can unlearn it, which is the title of your chapter, Unlearning Old Belief Systems and Patterns. Talk to us a little bit about that. And once you talk to us about that, then go ahead and share your parting wisdom and encouragement to our listening audience, Shawnee.
Yes, yes. So learning oldhood, your belief system, like we all are born into the world and we're born into family. And our beliefs are going to be dictated based off of our experiences with those. When we go out into the world and you're in day school and things of that nature, those things that you experience out there start to add to those beliefs. And as you navigate through life and you become into an adult, you need to dissect those beliefs that you're carrying with you every single year. I'm going to say every year you should be doing a check in with yourself to say, what beliefs are still with me today that are no longer of service to me, things that are hindering me. Ask ourselves these questions, we start to hit to the root, the reality of everything. Back in 2020, the desire to drink alcohol at any capacity was taken away from me. Right, this was God's doing, and I think it was about 6 or 7 months into not drinking after the first year, and I was like, "Oh, I haven't had a drink all year," and I was like, "I don't even need a drink." And then I was just satisfied with it. But then when I started going around people and it's like, "Oh, I don't drink anymore," you know what happened? They started to question me. Well, why you don't drink anymore? I just don't have a desire for it. And then I started to talk to God to get more understanding as far as why the desire just went away. And I started to reflect on the challenges that my family faced with alcohol abuse. And the reason why I drank was because I was exposed to it at a young age. There was no purpose in drinking, you know? So it was like, it was one of those things where it just did not make sense to me anymore. Why drink if it's not of service to me? It was a no brainer for me at that point. And then I started looking back at all other areas of my life to say, what else did I carry over into my adulthood that I need to go ahead and rid myself of that is not of value? People pleasing. People pleasing was one of those things that I had learned to connect myself with from my childhood, because when I pleased folks, I didn't get any issues. I didn't have any conflict with them. But I didn't realize what I was doing was a disservice to myself. I was hurting who I was on internally, and I didn't even know who I was without it. I didn't even know how to say no. And if I did say no, I would feel so bad about it, to the point where I would go back on my word and go ahead and do it. And then I would regret doing it every single time. And then I would also be burnt out. So all of these negative things were transpiring on the inside of me from that people pleasing. And I said, hold on now, we got to get rid of this. So if it's saying no that's hard, I'm going to have to push through and do that, because I need to know what it feels like to say no, but also to take care of Shawnee. So when I started doing that, of course, you start seeing the reality of people. You start seeing that, oh, people were only that way because you were that way. Okay, I wasn't my authentic self, and I'm going to be my authentic self moving forward. And this is the message for anybody out there who is fearful of showing up and being themselves, sharing their testimony. Let me tell you something. I was so mute just growing up as a child. I didn't talk till I was 2 years old, no words. But when I started talking, I started boom, 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 lots of words. And somehow, because of the trauma, my voice was taken away from me, and I started to silence myself. So as an adult, it was hard for me to talk. Back in 2020 was also the time God said start showing up doing live videos. I was crippling with anxiety and depression. This is why you cannot allow those thoughts, those emotions to cripple you. You have to still show up. So I showed up and was doing live videos, shaking, shaking, shaking. I was shaking. My body would be shaking for hours after going live. And I was only doing 5 to 7 minutes. I wasn't even on there that long, because my mind was thinking about, well, what is this person thinking when they hear me talk? What judgment, was going on through their mind. And I was like, you know what? But why do I need to show up? Oh, I have information to share with the people. I have a testimony to give. I have an assignment to fulfill. Now, I didn't understand my assignment at that time. Now, with how I understand it now, because God has really been showing me. He was like, girl, you thought you showing up and speaking and you being a mental health therapist was the ultimate calling over your life. He said, baby girl, I have something much more for you. So I've been in the background working. Okay, he has called me into ministry. And that's how strategic God is when you allow him to move into your life. He'll strip things of you left and right that were not for you. He will give you new insight, new revelation, and you have to be open-minded to listening. As some say in my life, I was not open to listening. I would hear things and I'd be like, you know what, I gotta do better, and I would have all of the information I would need, and I would not act on it. I'm gonna tell you, in this season, you cannot afford to listen and not take action. You have to apply everything that you're taking in this season, because this world is already in shambles. This
Wait a
world,
minute. Hold on. Wait just 1 second, and we're getting ready to get out of here. But I need you to back up because you ran past that too fast. You said in this season we need to. How did you put that? We need to not. We need to be. We need to be taking action. How?
yeah,
What did you say?
we have to take action. In this season, you can't afford to just listen. You have to take action as well. You have to apply knowledge that you have. You can no longer sit around and just be collecting information. You can't even sit around and buy my books and just read it and not do anything with it. Let me tell you something, because this information is there for you to unlock another piece on the inside of you. Unlock a piece on the side of you, going to allow things to fall off of you that should have never been there to begin with. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of heaviness in this world. A lot of you have challenges that you've been facing from childhood trauma, rejection, abandonment. You don't even know who you are in this season.
Jesus.
On a new thing. He's ready to show up in each and every one of your lives and strip away whatever he did not plant. Whatever the enemy planted, God is uprooting it right now in the name of Jesus. He wants you, boy. He wants you to actually walk in the fruits of the Spirit. Many of you cannot do that because fear, depression is crippling you. That relationship is crippling you. And God is saying you got to let go of these people. You got to let go of these ideologies. You got to let go of this environment. Some of you are supposed to be moving. You have not moved, right? Move out of your hometown. He needs to plant you on on ground that's good. Plant you in good ground. The ground that you were birthed in, not good for you, And a lot of yourself to just surrender to the call. Many of you were called to preach, right? I'm one of them. Call me to preach. Little shy me called me to preach. But I'm telling you right now that shaking and a stirring in the spirit right now, and God is ready to do some new things in your life. And he can't do those with you allowing yourself to, woe is me. Woe is me. Yes, absolutely. That thing happened to you, but guess what? God is doing something as well. He's right in your face, and he just needs you to let that thing go. Let it go. It's hard. It is so hard to let things go, but I'm telling you, God, he's a good God. He answers with speed. When you show up with your whole heart, that's how I became a business owner. I showed up with my whole heart and said, I'm going to go ahead and drop this spirit because I ain't got nothing to lose. I done lost everything. Because God will strip you of some things, right? But imagine what life is like when you actually show up and say, you know what, God, I know you already told me to let go of some things, but let me go ahead and let go of some of these other things. Do you know what your Father will do? Do you understand the depths of love that he has for you? He's ready to come in because he needs you to be out there serving his people, right? He wants you to be your full, authentic self, who he created you to be in your mother's womb. Many of you have not even seen a peek of what that's supposed to look like because you've allowed yourself to be crippled by the enemy of this world, the enemy of your mind. And you were called people. So I want to encourage you all to be free, to be free. Allow God to come into your life and work that thing upon you. Whatever it is that he needs. His love, his grace, his mercy. Call out for mercy. Call out for mercy. His love is sufficient. His love is sufficient. And he will never. So it's time to be bold and courageous. It's Joshua 1. That's one of my favorite chapters because that's how I was able to get my stuff together. I meditated on that word day and night and day. And before you know it, kicked it up in overdrive because that's what God will do. You have to know his word, and that's how you cast down those thoughts that come up in there that's connected to anxiety, that's connected to selflessness. Call out the word, call out the Lord. He got you in this season. I love y'all. Free from Captivity, a memoir of a generational curse breaker is on my website. It's also on Amazon, and this book is definitely going deeper into the experiences that I've had, but I am the repairer of the breach. God has set me before you all to help set the captives free. But of course, I had to become free first. So imagine what God has ready for you.
She done came up in here and just, I'm over here going in, y'all. I was over here behind the camera going straight in. Because let me say this, as we're getting ready to close, see, for those of you who are followers of Christ, you are disciples, God called us to the marketplace. He just didn't call us to talk to church folks, because church folks is church folks and they just gonna be church folks. We got to move past the church folks, and we got to go to the marketplace, and we have to do exactly what Shawnee is saying. We have to loose the chains that bound people. We have to set the captives free. We have to, and that's one of my favorite scriptures. Joshua is my boy. That's one of my favorite scriptures too. We have to be bold and courageous because we're living in a world where the enemy is coming after us. He ain't playing, but he's coming to take us out. And it's time for us to stop sitting on our gifts. Yes, Vanessa Rhines. She said, show up. That's right. It is time for us to show up. I ain't going to say nothing else because she said what she said. So let me get myself together. Let me get myself together. So as we get ready to wrap up, my God, because like I told y'all, y'all gonna get some preach on this show right here. If you don't want to hear the word, this might not be the one that you want to tune into. Because oh my goodness. Okay. I said I was gonna be quiet. I'm getting ready to end this show. So we are actually wrapping up another, powerful episode of this talk show where we delved into, we say we delved into it, we did, but we didn't even scratch the surface because there's so much more. But we talked about Shawnee talked about the transformative power of shifting our mindset to conquer the challenges of depression, anxiety, and trauma. And she, yes, she is a mental health therapist, but she is not speaking from the books. She's speaking from lived experience. So whatever she said, you can take it to the bank. So I want you all to remember that within each of us lies the strength to rewrite our stories. We already said this, and to reclaim our happiness. So let this discussion be a catalyst for change, y'all, as we embark on a journey of healing, yes, and resilience. Until the next time, we want you to stay strong, stay hopeful, and remember this, that you're not alone. And we want to express our heartfelt appreciation once more to Shawnee Palmer for coming on and for sharing this powerful woman of God. I'm telling you, her information is at the bottom of the screen. Please follow her. She will encourage you. She encourages me so much, and we appreciate her. This has been How Well Are You, the talk show, and we are dedicated. We're dedicated to erasing the stigma surrounding mental illness, one episode at a time, and you're going to get the whole picture of how we doing this. We doing this in the way that God is telling us to do it. We doing it through professionalism, through education, but ultimately it's not by might and it's not by power, but it's by my spirit, said the Lord. And at the end of the day, that's how we rolling. I am Cynthia Mobley Howell, and I'm concluding for the time being. But you remember, keep smiling, stay positive, and take care of your minds. And just quickly, Deborah Ford says, powerful. Thank you, Deborah, for joining. Vanessa says, thank you both. You are welcome. Dr. K says, great show. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your engagement. And one more time, thank you so much, Shawnee, for coming this evening and for sharing with us and for just going on ahead and dropping the mic. And I'm good with that. Until next week, you all stay blessed and make sure whatever you do, don't let anybody take your peace. And as y'all already know, I am not keeping quiet anymore. Peace.